That was my ocarina. This is my voice. This is the vessel I find myself in, named Fred. And this is my Q&A on my Patreon. This is another session where I answer questions people send me and try to answer them in a way that's satisfying and leaves you reaching some sort of climax, an intellectual climax, a philosophical orgasm. That's me drinking a Coke. That's a lie, it's a Pepsi. But, it's the same thing, really. I'm kind of sick of the competition between Coke and Pepsi. It's like, just get along. There's enough, real threats to world peace in the world. Israel, Palestine, Pakistan, India, North Korea, South Korea. Do we need Coke versus Pepsi? No. You're just two companies that make soft drinks, Try to chill it a little bit, right? Yeah. Anyway, so I'm going to answer actually questions this time around. I'm scratching my leg, which is why I'm sounding a little bit like this. I'm not sitting comfortably. Anyway, so first question comes in asking me for advice about how to stay calm and less anxious during these times of coronavirus and all these horrible news that we keep getting about the pandemic. And it's an interesting question because, of course, I do talk a lot about mental health because I am mentally ill and I have lots of experience with anxiety disorders, generalized anxiety, OCD, social anxiety, agoraphobia. I do like to talk a lot about anxiety and how to lessen anxiety and provide tips and advice to people. I like to talk about that stuff. But when it comes to the corona stuff, asking how you can be less anxious about corona is a little bit like asking someone, calling like a self-help guide phone line and asking, an axe murderer just came into my house and killed half my family. How can I be less anxious about this axe murderer going around? You should be anxious about that axe murderer going around. You should call the cops. And you should probably lock your door. You should do stuff to avoid having half your family murdered by that axe murderer. The anxiety you feel about that axe murderer isn't unreasonable. It isn't, irrational. It isn't unhealthy. It's very healthy. It's the sort of anxiety you should be feeling. So when people say I'm feeling a lot of anxiety about coronavirus, yeah, you should feel anxious about coronavirus. It's a deadly pandemic. It's not as deadly as some historic pandemics, certainly not, but it's not good to get it, and it's not good to have it. And if you can change your life somewhat dramatically to limit your exposure, that is a fine, smart, good thing to do. That's the thing about anxiety that some people sometimes do not seem to get, is that some people think that in order to be mentally healthy, in order to have good mental health, you sort of need to be happy all the time. You need to be happy-go-lucky and never sad and never depressed. That's not how it works. I mean, good mental health is about having a healthy mixture of different emotions to be able to have ups and downs and not let it ruin your life. In fact, people who are happy all the time, who have no worries, who have no anxieties, they are manic. or narcissistic, or in some ways that often implies a worse kind of mental illness than being depressed occasionally. A person who has no shame, who has no guilt, who has no negative feelings whatsoever is a fucking psychopath. The goal of recovering or reaching its sort of a healthier point of thinking, reaching a better place of mental health, the goal is never to remove all forms of stress or anxiety that may be hurting you. The goal is to be able to handle that anxiety and stress in a better way. Certainly, I mean, when it comes to a lot of anxiety disorders, the thing that happens oftentimes is that you will feel this spike of anxiety, this anxiety spiral, over something that you have no reason to be really anxious about. One of the worst kind of moments of anxiety I've ever had was when this was a long time ago. I know it because I ordered from the internet, so it was still when internet existed, but I ordered a DVD. There you can tell how long time ago this was. I ordered a DVD online because I wanted to watch a movie, and Netflix and stuff like that didn't exist at the time. So I ordered this DVD, and to my surprise, when it got home to me, I got 2 copies. And nothing in, the stuff I got, papers I got sent along with the DVD, mentioned that I had gotten 2 copies. I had not accidentally ordered 2 copies, this was just a mistake. And it got me feeling a sudden sense of anxiety that I can't really describe. It was like going from 1 to 100 in like a snap of the finger. And that's entirely irrational. All I needed to do was, contact the website that I had ordered the DVD from and tell them that, you accidentally sent me 2 DVDs instead of 1. And they said, "Oh, I'm sorry about that. Can you please send it back to us?" And we sorted out.
Intermission.
So, I got a little bit off track there because I got interrupted while recording. Anyway, the point is, bad anxiety, the sort of anxiety that is the core of an anxiety disorder, is not anxiety that you might feel about an axe murderer or a deadly pandemic. It's the sort of anxiety you feel over oftentimes the most ridiculous, irrational things that you can possibly think of. This is what makes it a problem, where you have these anxiety spirals, where you take something small and blow it out of proportions. Where you might think that, I don't have enough milk in the house, so if I don't get new milk right now, there might be an earthquake. And the thought pattern, the kind of line of reasoning is so irrational, it's so ridiculous, that anyone who hears it, who hasn't been along the ride, your thought ride, will think of you as having gone completely mad. That's the thing about, like, when you see people with really severe OCD doing these ridiculous, absurd rituals, and you ask them why, and they tell you, well, if I don't switch the light switch on and off for 30 seconds, my entire family will die. And you go, well, how? And the way they think about it, the way they sort of have it structured in their head, is that somehow the electrical wiring will somehow go wrong and burst into flames and the house will burn down or whatever. But it's irrational in that sense. It's not irrational to want to avoid being made sick. It's not irrational to wear a mask to avoid being made sick. It's not irrational to ask your country to go into a lockdown in order to avoid more and more needless deaths. Having said all that, is there something that I can say about coronavirus to make people less anxious about it? Yeah, I guess. I mean, that we seem to be handling it quite fine, relatively speaking. I mean, a lot of governments have proven themselves to be utterly incapable, incompetent. Trump exists, and you should always be anxious about Trump existing, like even if he wasn't president, just Trump existing on this planet, reminding us all that that is what mankind can accomplish when we decide to truly let go of any kind of moral compass or sense of decency, taste. You get someone like Trump, a blight on mankind's cultural accomplishments, and now in charge of one of the most powerful nations on earth. Jesus Christ. This didn't turn out as positive as I meant it. But the truth, I believe that actually we have seen it from healthcare professionals, experts working in this field. They have proven to be more than capable of handling this, even if they desperately need more resources. The problem isn't with manpower. The problem isn't with the brains trying to fix this. The problem is with resources, if anything. That we have people working hard, we have people putting their life at risk in order to save others, which isn't always a good thing. But it is, in this instance at least, quite admirable. That is something that you should focus on. There's always, it's one of the most simplest, easiest things that people bring up when they try to encourage positive thinking, which is look for the good news, look for the helpers, look for the heroes. Don't look and read all about all things negative going on. Don't read all about all those corrupt politicians trying to ruin it all. Read about the good politicians that are trying to help you. And it's not just one person or one ultimate idealistic hero that you have to put all your faith into. This is something that's happening all the time in politics. People become so attached with this one savior figure that they assume that the rest of the world is utterly crap and that no one else is good, only them. And then they fail to get votes, and people become depressed, anxious, and feel as if they've lost the whole fight, which that's not how it works. There are lots of people, even politicians, even lawyers, even accountants, that are genuinely good people and are working the good fight, are doing what they can right now to help. You saw one of the best news stories to come out of this is, of course, that one of those stores that sells fetish gears for people with a medicinal, what's it called, medical fetish, a doctor's fetish, whatever. They sold their equipment. They didn't sell their equipment. That I misspoke. They gave away their equipment that they had lying about to doctors who needed some more resources. They gave it away for free. These fetishistic, these sexual perverts, they took their part in helping out. They made a difference. We're seeing this with everyone right now, and that is something to focus on. So, second question: do I like pie? Yeah, I think I do like pie. So this was this week's episode of Q&A with Fred. See you next week. That was a long note.